All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to introduce myself in case this is the first time we are meeting on this virtual platform. My name is Douglas Nelson. I'm the principal of Wooten High School. I appreciate being here with you this morning for a coffee chat. I know an opportunity to just sit down with some questions that are out there and to go over some information that we can share with you is very important in helping to keep that cycle of communication open. So I hope that I will do my very best to get you some of that information. I just wanted to take a moment to thank Nikki, our PTSA treasurer, who's with us on this Zoom this morning. She's done so much to make sure we have these opportunities, but she really also supports us with tech and just helping get them off the ground. So thank you very much to Nikki for once again helping us with our coffee chat. Just a little note about the structure, how we will focus our time this morning. There have been some questions that have been submitted, and so I'm going to start with those. In order to let you know the content of each of those questions, I'll go ahead and read those and review them so that you have a sense about what is being asked in that question, and then I'll do the best to answer it. And we have 4 questions submitted this morning. And then once we've had a chance to review those 4 questions, we're going to open it up for any questions that might come from the group that is on the Zoom today. So we will have a chance to raise your hand, be acknowledged, and then share a question. And once again, I will do my best to try to answer that question. So that's a little bit about how we will frame our coffee chat. If this is your first one of these chats, like it is for me, the next time we would love to have some questions from you. So please know that we're collecting those questions in advance of this time together. So please submit one. We would love to get you an answer for your question. Okay, let's go ahead and step into question number 1. This question is around hall passes and the advice that we have provided to Wooten staff about the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes of passes being reduced. So this question is asked, can we learn about hall passes not being in the first or last 10 minutes? This impacts the female students who may need to get to the bathroom on demand or urgently to manage their periods and having to go in the middle of class. They miss instruction time. It was poorly thought through and not through the lens of female students, and can an exception be made? So that is the basis of that question. So let's start with the last part of that question, which is, can an exception be made? And the answer is yes. So any student who is facing an urgent matter should ask for a pass from a teacher at any point. And sometimes those urgent matters, we recognize them. You just have to go, right? So not only do I think you might have a time if you are facing your period and you just have a chance to say, I need this urgent pass, I've got to go. Sometimes students are facing an urgent matter, they don't have time to ask. If you're going to get sick to your stomach, for example, students are just going to bolt from the class, and we will work through that. The idea behind the 10 minutes before and the 10 minutes after is it opens the door for students who consistently ask to go out of the classroom as a way to avoid instruction. And for some of our students, that happens. Or some students, they're in a rhythm of asking and they're not quite realizing you're constantly missing this part of instruction every single day. I'll give you an example. If you are a math teacher and your math warm-up is an example problem that you're actually going to connect to in class, and a student asks 5 days a week, right at the start of period 7, to go to the bathroom, you consistently then miss warm-up after warm-up after warm-up. And I believe that there does need to be a way for teachers to say to a student, I'm advising that you don't go. And so the 10 minutes at the start and the 10 minutes at the conclusion of class is when we are asking teachers to reduce and withhold passes. But of course, if a student has an urgent matter, they need to go. It is not an absolute outright restriction. So if there are some individuals that are just laying down the law that way, please reach out to us. You can reach out to a resource teacher, that staff member directly, an administrator. Like, we can go work through those on a case-by-case basis. But students that have an urgent matter should be able to tackle that urgent matter. They have to go if they really have a reason to leave the class. And so, Nikki, may I ask you, this question. Do you recommend, as someone who's done these before, that a little time be given at the conclusion of each of these questions for follow-up?
Yeah, I mean, I think if anyone has questions, while you're discussing that, they can certainly put that in the chat, raise their hand if you want to give that time. I mean, obviously, this is your coffee chat, so you can feel free to do as you wish.
Understood. Yeah, just thank you for helping me think through that one. So yeah, I will give a couple moments if there is anyone who would like to follow up in the chat about that topic, and that's passes for reduced at the first 10 and last 10 minutes of class. Please do so now, and then we'll see if we can take those questions. So the follow-up question is, do all teachers know this? My kid was denied one day. So Allie, my assumption is that it was a pressing or urgent matter, because some students might be denied if it's not clear to the teacher that it is an urgent matter. When we trained teachers, so these are actually my slides, the way that it was shared with staff is that we are asking that passes be reduced in that first 10 or last 10 minutes, right? Which then sets the stage that if there really is an urgent matter or something like that, you've got to work with the student to tackle it. Again, what we're going after is students who are asking daily to leave the first 10 or last 10 minutes, or maybe not daily, maybe it's just on a regular basis. So it's possible that a student might be denied, but we can work and follow up with that staff. I think we made that clear, but it's still possible that we might need to follow up with someone. So that's a reason to reach out. Okay, a great follow-up. Thank you for that. I'll continue to monitor the chat. Please feel free to put your comments in there at any time. Let's take a look at question number 2 then. I have a question or concern about my child. A few teachers are not responding to emails at all unless they go and check in person for questions answered. So what if a child needs an email over the weekend, and how can you address this concern? All right, so that's 3-part question. So let's step through this one kind of right in order. If an email has been sent and a student follows up with the teacher the next day, so let's say an email is sent that evening and you have that teacher third period and you walk in and you ask that teacher directly for an answer, to me, that gets the student the answer that they need. Sometimes it might not be an email reply. I think the goal here the recommendation I was just about to impart was that if there is something really pressing and the avenue is to email the teacher for, let's say, a math test tomorrow and it's Thursday evening and the test is on Friday, there is definitely a chance that you would not hear back from that staff member based on our email like protocol and policy. It might be best to go to that staff member directly as soon as you can the next day to have that question addressed. So I think part of this is about the time in which you get a question answered from a staff member, and teachers have 24 to 48 hours to respond to an email request. And so that might not be the timeliness that you need. So the second part of this question was, what if a child needs an email answered over the weekend? That absolutely can be a challenge, right? So teachers, if they respond over the weekend, and that is how they approach kind of their email, then I think that's great and supportive, but teachers are not required to do that. So weekend communication, teachers should be responding within 24 to 48 hours, and that is possible that you would not get a reply over the weekend. So it is, you're going to have to do the best that you can when it comes to working through whatever you need. And a rule of thumb that I have always advised, it seemed to serve me well, is if you are completely stymied on, let's say, a weekend project or something that absolutely requires the teacher to weigh in, and it's being done over the weekend and due on Monday, the nature of the email that I would send is communicating to that teacher how you are stuck and that you can't move forward, so that that staff member at least has a heads up that you attempted to let them know that you can't make progress with your work and it's unlikely you are going to get it done. And that's done for more than, let's just say, getting stymied with a project. You should communicate that if you get ill and can't get the work done. The idea here is you're giving a heads up, so you're informing someone if you really can't get something prepared or done for when you are coming back to school. I think that is a best practice, so I would recommend that. And how can we address a concern about communication? So my recommendation, and this protocol is in place for a number of things. If your concern is about timely replies with that staff member, then I would reach out to the staff member and inquire about that. As a teacher, I would have liked to have heard from a parent that this is your concern. And so I would go directly to that person. If email is the concern, you might reach out or schedule a phone call or work with a counselor in order to set that up. And then from there, if you still do not feel as though you are getting a timely communication back from a teacher here at Wooten, then the next step is to the head of the department, the resource teacher. You can see who all of our resource teachers are by going to the Wooten website, and there is a section for departments, and you can see who that person is that supports an academic department here by name. And then if it still remains an issue, you follow up with an administrator and we can look into that. So that is how I would address question number 2, and let's see if there's any follow-ups. So one item here. Let's take the chat. Someone wrote, what about a teacher who has stated that they do not respond to emails ever? So that is not within the policy of MCPS. So if you have information from that teacher, well, I guess it might have been shared verbally or over email, I do recommend that if that is something you are looking at, your resource teacher is the next person to reach out to. So an example, if this was an English teacher that said that, you would reach out to Mr. Zach Lowe, right? If it was science, you reach out to the resource teacher of science, so on and so forth. So that is how I would address someone who says, I never respond to email. I have one about communication with a student who might be out with COVID, okay? So again, teachers should be replying to emails within 24 to 48 hours. So if you need us to follow up with that, you know how to do that now. I do want to be clear with parents that students that are out with COVID this year are being considered ill and out of school for that reason. So as the principal, I do not believe that we should be asking our students to then turn around and complete all of their schoolwork while out with COVID if they are home ill. I do believe first and foremost, they should be focusing on getting better. So that teacher might be waiting for that student to return after 5 days, and then we'll figure out their plan for makeup work. And a student that would be out, for example, for 5 days with COVID, then has 5 school days, not 5 total days, 5 school days in order to complete all of that work. So when a student returns from an illness, they should touch base with all of their teachers to make up work. So that might not always be addressed over email because that staff member might be waiting for the student to return, and then we'll speak with them. And then part of this question is about, I believe there are a couple here who didn't, it's really about losing a whole week of work if you're out for an extended period of time. We do recognize that being out a whole week, like that is a long time out of school. But again, the MCPS policy is designed to help students still make up work. So they have an opportunity to reassess and relearn, touch base with that teacher for the same number of days that they're out to do makeup work. All right, so I do have a question about enrollments, college enrollment. So I'm gonna hold that one in the queue. And I'm going to see if there's any in the chat about absences, since that's the topic we are on. Okay. Okay, so I have one from, this is, I believe, Mr. Robert Shapiro, but your last name is cut off, so I might not have your name perfectly correct. I apologize for that. But this one is about multiple teachers not granting extensions for assignments when my son was out. And this is a COVID-related absence. I had personally contacted the teachers, and my son had some emails also sent with teachers. So if the extension would be based upon how much time your son was out, right? So if he was out for 5 days, the example that I've been using, and he did not receive that 5 days, that would be one that you would either clarify it further with the teacher or reach out to the resource teacher so that we can look into that matter. Students do need to be given the time that they should receive based on the MCPS attendance policy, right? So now when it comes to extensions beyond that, that is for teachers to determine and decide. So they may look at it and offer an extension, they may not, but that would be for the teachers to determine. I'm also getting some recommended comments. Thank you for that. Sure, got a question about who is a resource teacher. So resource teacher is our title for department chair. So every academic department has someone who is the department chair. Their title is the resource teacher. And with one exception, and that is Ariel Markowitz, who is a resource counselor. And she is also the same as the department chair for the counseling department. So every academic department has a resource teacher. Their title, they act as the department chair. So that's a great clarification. Thank you. Any other clarifications or comments for students being out? And it looks like we have someone with a raised hand on an iPhone. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but if you want to unmute.
Hi, yes, good morning. We have been sick with COVID since Monday.
Sorry about that.
And I just joined the meeting late, so I heard a little bit about because he's been out, and I know he has been able to. He sent the emails to the teachers while he hasn't been in school, and I'm pretty sure the school knows about, because they call me. But do we need to notify the school, or because we got an email saying he's in the soccer basketball team, and they sent an email about that.
Okay, so sorry to hear Ricky has COVID. I hope he gets better soon. A couple of notes. Students who are out for that reason, please know that MCPS, and this also gets to a comment in the chat, MCPS does ask that you continue to report students who have a positive test for COVID. A note that you made, it seems that athletics is communicating to teams, specifically if a team member has COVID, so there's an additional communication going there. Schools themselves are not broadly communicating any information home, but we are receiving positive cases. Here at Wooten, we have set up that if you fill out the MCPS form, that gets sent to the attendance office. So there is a benefit for completing and reporting that form. You will automatically have your absence excused because we are sending that over. I also still recommend that when a student returns to school after being out for COVID, that you send a note so that we know that that's just kind of double checking to make sure that you get your absence excused. When it comes to working with teachers, there is a resource that I want you all to be aware of. There is an isolation calculator that MCPS has shared. I've also shared that in the community update, which allows you to look at when there's an onset of symptoms, that is your start date. And then it shows you the date that you should then return to school. So I find that a really helpful resource because it makes it very clear that if this is the date you experience symptoms and have a positive test, then you would return to school on this day. And once you know that, I would recommend then reaching out to the child's teachers to share that information, because they might then say, there are some things you can do if you feel you are able to while you are absent. They might loop you in on some work to complete. Otherwise, if you're out for 5 days, you'll have 5 days to complete your makeup work when you return to school.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for that. And since we're just, quickly on this topic of COVID, there was a comment about numbers of cases, and will schools be reporting case percentages again and considering masks in the winter? I don't have any specific information to that. I will say that watching what is reported to Wooten and now seeing, communications from athletics, it is my sense as the principal, our numbers are up a bit from where they were at the start of the school year. Right now, I do know that there are, we have a medical officer at MCPS, so they would be watching and managing numbers where they are. We have not received any additional masking guidance at this time, so it's optional. It's what you would choose to do. If you want to wear a mask, you're certainly allowed to do that. If you do not want to wear a mask, you're allowed to do that as well. I do not know if when cases elevate, schools will receive additional guidance, but please know this, if we do receive that guidance, we of course will communicate it with you. Quick one on identifying your resource teacher. You can, so this is Melanie's question, you can identify a resource teacher through the staff directory. So each department, you'll see a link that will take you directly to the academic department, and then that person is identified as the resource teacher. Okay, and then I see some other comments about college visits and things like that. I'll review the chat and go back to some of these. I'm going to tackle the questions that are right in front of me and that were submitted in advance, and then I'll circle back to those in the chat. Okay, so question number 3 that was submitted to me in advance, this is about athletic trainers. So let me share a bit about this question. I'm concerned about the lack of athletic trainers at all 25 high schools across the county. It does not comply with the MCPS athletic core values of spirited and safe competition and equity and access. This is a major problem for MCPS, and it's very troubling that a school system with such significant resources cannot find a creative solution for a major part of the high school experience. Would it be acceptable if some of the high schools didn't have enough security every day, right? Unfortunately, our child's safety and well-being is at risk every time they play a game with no athletic trainer. And I'm still not clear what the criteria was for deciding which school was assigned athletic trainers for this fall season, okay? And then this question repeats some of the other language again. There's other parts of this, so I'm going to come back to those other parts of this questions, but let me start with the lack of trainers. Schools were notified that there was a lack of trainers at all of our schools. It is my understanding that they are working very diligently to address that. At the school level, we do not hire trainers. It gives me the impression they are contracted through medical providers and then assigned to specific schools. And it is my understanding that they don't have the staff. So it is not that we're not resourced to have trainers. It is that there's a deficit in individuals that are applying and taking these jobs. So it's one they're going to keep working on. It's how it was kind of shared with us. They're going to keep working diligently. I think there are 3 medical providers that work with athletic trainers, and they are going to continue their hiring process so we can fully staff. But that was the primary issue, was individuals not applying to or taking those jobs. So in time, we were assured that they were going to eventually fully staff athletic trainers. So my apologies on behalf of the school system, and I know that they are working on addressing that. The other part of this question is about back-to-back games. So in addition, can we also please do something about back-to-back games? It makes sense to suspend them until all 25 schools have athletic trainers. Otherwise, you are putting the kids at further risks, and it violates core values. I am confident that whomever schedules makeup games can be thoughtful and creative so that back-to-back games are avoided, which when there is a lack of athletic trainers, right? So my recommendation about back-to-back games, the individual here at Wooten who works on scheduling all of our athletic events, and please know, it's not something that we are solely in charge of. It's done with all athletic directors in a collaborative process from around MCPS. So that is Mr. Lightsey. So I will pass this along to him and you get his perspective on it. If that is a concern, I also would recommend speaking with Mr. Lightsey about back-to-back games and what we can do for that. So those are my two recommendations for that question. Well, I guess my thoughts about part one of that question and a recommendation for part two. Let's tackle question number 4, and then we'll open it. I'll review the chat and we'll go through some of the items in there. Okay, question number 4. I have a question about students' use of cell phones and what the school has observed regarding kids' use in school. Our family would prefer if our child was not even allowed to have a school or a cell phone at school, but perhaps we are in the minority. Our child says she needs this to take pictures in art class, check her schedule, and she also likes to listen to music on her phone and is able to text with her friends while at school. It's a confusing conundrum for the household, and we are concerned about her mental health and pressure for school achievement. So a number of items. My impressions about cell phone use, it is certainly down within classrooms. I wasn't here last year, but I believe that a lot of high schools were in a similar boat. Students were on phones constantly. With the new policy, everyone is speaking about it being reduced and that students are more focused in the classroom, so that's a great result. I definitely see students who leave classes and immediately go on their phones pretty regularly. According to our policy, they can be on a cell phone in a hallway. They can use their phones throughout lunch. They can use phones before and after school. All of that is permissible. And my perception is students are on their phones pretty regularly during those times. I would recommend that if you have expectations about phones and how you want to use them or how you want your child to use them, I would definitely set them and expect your child to follow through with those. But part of this is taking pictures in art class. Yes, that does happen. Student schedules, what we ask them to do is look up their schedule on their phone. And there are probably times that students want to listen to music and get on social media, and they do that in those off times. So it is likely that there's a reason that students might need to have their phone at school. So I do believe you described this as a conundrum. It likely is a conundrum. So just know that at the school, we do have some times where I believe a student would have to have a cell phone to access certain information while they are here. When it comes to students' mental health and pressure for school achievement, that little note is nested in there. I always would recommend that you speak with your child's counselor about what you're seeing and what the experience is. They are a first level support for you. They're going to offer advice as they work in this space quite regularly. So please reach out to your child's counselor and see what recommendations we can put in place there. So those are the 4 formal questions that we have that were submitted in advance. So I'm going to step off now to the chat and see what was placed in there. If you'll give me just a moment to review here. I'm just going to share certain things in the chat aloud as they pop up. So here's one, and this is about college enrollment situation of Wooten High School last year was not very good compared to previous years and comparing to Churchill. I wonder what the school is doing to improve the enrollment this year and in the future. So being new, I'm sorry, I don't have good context here. So Ms. Lee, do you mind if you share a little bit more about that?
Hey, yeah, this is Yankee. Yeah, thanks for taking the question. So I'm a parent of a senior high school. So I noticed, yeah, I have all the enrollment records from Wooten and other high schools in Montgomery County. And I compared that, the enrollment this year and the previous years, I noticed there's I would say a dramatic decline of the enrollment in top schools, and also compared to Churchill. Yeah, so I think like previous years, the two high schools are comparable. Yeah, they have about a similar number of students going to top schools. Yeah, but last year that it's not even close. Yeah, like Churchill High School was way better than Wooten. Yeah, and even compared to previous years of Wooten High School, yeah, last year was not good at all.
And you're saying, sir, just clarifying, to top schools, is that correct?
Yeah, like we just use like Ivy schools. Yeah, like last year, only two students from Wooten went to Ivy League. Yes, like I know that in Churchill alone, that's like over 10. This doesn't include like several went to Stanford, several went to like MIT. That's not like Ivy. Yeah, but Wooten, that's only two went to Ivy League. Yeah, that's like not very good. It's really unusual, even compared to Wooten from previous years.
Right. So I think this is good information for me to have. You know, I certainly have my personal thoughts about what is a top school and whether, you know, a school is a good match for a student. And I think my preference to respond to that is if I believe students are finding their school that is a good match for them, then I believe they've really made the right decision about where they are going to college, right? Even if for a specific class, that shows a change when compared to other classes or other schools. One thing I do want you to know, and being new, I would probably have to look into this. So I'll go over and talk to the College and Career Center and learn a little bit more about this. I'm looking at the most up-to-date school profile for Wooten this year. And for the 2022 graduating class, 90% of our students chose a 4-year college and 9% of them chose a 2-year college. So 99% of the students who were college focused, and it's very clear that's the vast majority of students here at Wooten, they selected their school. And so that is encouraging to me, even if maybe it is a bit different than, you know, top tier our Ivy League schools. So I just would share that fact with you also in reply. And Mr. Lee, was there anything else you need me to speak to with that one?
No, that's all I needed. Thank you very much.
And just a little thank you. I see some resources being shared with families in the chat. Thank you for that. So here's a question. This one is from Sally about clarifying the policy regarding student absences resulting from college visits. My understanding is this is an excused absence. What documentation is required in advance to substantiate such an absence? It's my understanding that it's just a note for the policy. So students receive a specific number of days for college visits based on your determination, and that you would get an excused absence by simply having that student return with a note. So anything you wanted to clarify further with that, Sally, or is this related on like a specific circumstance that you're dealing with? If so, I'd love to hear about it.
No, thank you for that reply. In previous years with my older child who has graduated already, the office required us to actually show them that he was scheduled for a tour at that college or university. And what we are finding is that we can't always get a tour at the college we want to visit. So we have a visit scheduled coming up next month for our daughter, and that is the case. We cannot get a tour, so we're going to have to do the self-tour. So I don't have that substantiation. So
Sure.
that's why I was asking what would be required.
Yeah. My take on that is I don't believe that a tour is the only way to complete a college visit. So if you went to a college visit and did that your way, right? I did not always go on a tour. The policy allows for college visits. It does not stipulate exactly how you do a college visit. So let me ask a question about that one. So this question is from Chris. Has MCPS changed the way semester grades are calculated from last school year? My current understanding is no. I believe that semester grades are currently calculated the same way. Anything else I can help you with that one, Chris?
Yeah, trying to unmute myself. I just, in a conversation with my son, he said that if last semester, if you got like a B in the first marking period, A in the second marking period, you get an A for the semester.
Mm-hmm.
He said this year, if you get an A in the first marking period, B in the second marking period, you're going to get a B for the semester.
That's right. Right, yeah. That's not a change, actually.
That's not a change?
No, it's not. I know. So it's kind of a little bit of a, it's an interesting circumstance, isn't it? What I
Yes.
would say, Chris, we have charts that are put out to us by the curriculum office. So this office is OSIP, and they calculate for schools and then advise how it will be calculated. And it is my understanding that an B results in an A, and a BA results in an A, AB results in a B. So sorry, I misspoke that first one, but that's my understanding on the grading chart.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. I mean, last year was our first year in MCPS, so I'm still learning.
Yes, understood. So glad I can help you with that one. So here's a question about whether we recorded this. So yes, this coffee chat is recorded and will be shared through the PTSA. So if you came late, you're good to go. Great, sorry, a very helpful question, Kathy. So Kathy has asked about showcases, tournaments for clubs, club sports teams. So really, these are absent requests for all of those other important life activities and things that students are interested in. Can they be excused from school? And the answer is we cannot excuse them. So if you were going to compete in a chess tournament, if you were, let's say, a finalist in a competition, an art competition, and you were going off to this event that was being held, we cannot excuse those according to the MCPS policy. We can, however, work with you. And I just want to start with what I believe as an educator and principal. These are experiences that we want our kids to be involved in. So if I saw that policy change, I, for one, would be happy to see that. I also want to help kids have those experiences because they really remember them and are a big part of growing up. And, it's just a very rich experience. So if you know one of those things is going to happen, please reach out to your grade level administrator, and they are going to communicate with teachers so that students continue to have access to their work. Unfortunately, an unexcused absence by policy means you cannot make up the work, but we can help you with that by reaching out to teachers. It will be an unexcused absence. I think for many of these events, it's worth taking the unexcused absence, but your grade level administrator will work with your child's teachers to make sure they still have access to their work. And so that's how that works for us, Kathy. So Paul has asked about some of the new athletic safety measures. They're calling them enhanced safety measures that are in place. So I'll go ahead and take this question by question, Paul, and then I'll also give you just a little bit about those enhanced safety measures because we have a big game coming up tonight. So for students at sports, can students leave their seats? So the answer is yes, but I am also going to say be mindful of this. So if you have a reason to leave your seat, you've got to go to the bathroom, you want to visit the concession stand. Let's say that a parent is at the concession stand and you text your child and say, come here, I don't know what you want. And they go down and they have a reason to be out of their seat, they're good to go. Please know staff are really going to be paying attention to this to a higher level. And if we talk to students, just prepare them. You tell us your reason, and we're going to ask you to return to your seat as soon as you can, right? We're going to work with that. What this is going to allow us to do is if students don't really have a valid reason, they are not returning to their seat, they're consistently out and about and not focused on this game, we're going to address that. So that is really what we're looking at, and students may leave. They just really need to make it as quick as they can, and you want to return to your seat within a reasonable amount of time. It's unclear about leaving to go to the concession stand or bathroom. Hopefully I cleared that up for you. And how is this going to be enforced? It's going to be enforced by a conversation at first, right? If we have non-compliance, then we're going to have to take this case by case, right? Some of the things that I have done for students who are essentially non-compliant at a game is sometimes I will escort that student back if they're willing to work with me. If you have someone who's really non-compliant, it might go to the point where we have to make the call that you can't stay at the event any longer. And when we do that, we work with students to contact parents and we figure out how they're going to get home. But sometimes we do go all the way to, this is no longer the place for you to stay. We need you to find a way home. So bigger picture, and then I'll open up, Paul, to see if you have any follow-ups. Bigger picture for the enhanced safety measures. So there was an email message that went out on Wednesday. There was a follow-up on Synergy to also include students so that we were making some of our expectations very clear. I hope that everyone had a chance to look at that. Not only was this communicated to the Wooten community, but there was also a request for middle school principals and elementary principals to communicate with their community as well. Because not only do we have enhanced safety measures that we need everyone to know about, there's also some specific Churchill measures that are specific to this game. So what I would like for you all to really know is our enhanced safety measures are both of those things. They've communicated what MCPS wants us to do. And then I've also communicated what Mr. Taylor and Mr. Billock have shared with us from Churchill. So you know specific game related structures that are in place. An example for which is when our fans exit the game tonight, we go through a separate gate than the Churchill fans, and we'll help you with that. So there are some specific Churchill related items that we wanted you to know about as well. So Paul, were there any follow-ups to the MCPS enhanced safety measures policy?
No, my only question is obviously the largest event really is the football, right? That's where you get the largest crowd. Should we expect similar experiences if our kids are going, like my kids like to go to the soccer games, they like to go to the field hockey games. Is it all going to kind of be the same, just on a smaller scale? Just curious, because we use the GoFan, we get the tickets and et cetera. I just want to be able to, set expectations with my kids as far as when they're going to the games. And I appreciate you addressing this question.
Oh, absolutely. This is one where we need to spend some time because there's definitely a lot of new. So one part of the press conference, and I don't know, Paul, if you had a chance to see this, you saw Dr. Sullivan spend some time on what he called tiered events. And there's a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. What that shows, what I want you to know about that is that when we are working on events, we know what are our high pressure games and what are our games that, because history shows us, they're just not as challenging of an approach to take because the game is relatively calm or students don't travel that much. We are looking at that on a constant basis. So some of the enhanced safety measures would not necessarily be needed at all events, but they will be in place when we have a significant, what we would call a tier 1 event, which this Churchill Wooten game is, but might not be for, let's say, basketball, and we are playing Einstein. That might not be a big turnout or a big event for us. So it's based on the game itself. And then certain things that are going to be in place really all the time. And many of them were already in place. You know, backpacks do not come to basketball games. They don't go into the stadium because we know that some things that are in backpacks should not ever be at our games. So that's in place. We will likely not be letting guests in after halftime. That's going to be in place. And we are going to encourage individuals to be in stands, probably more than we did before. But again, based on the actual game, some of these structures are going to be in place big time and a little less than others. So.
Thank you.
Certainly. Just so everybody knows, in the chat, there are some comments about Mr. Lee's point from earlier, just some additional information being shared. So I just wanted you to know that's in the chat. So Erica asks a good clarification. So this is about Churchill game tonight. And for visiting Wooten students, are they required to have their parent present for the game, or will it be sufficient for another parent to be present? So Erica, this all comes down to which school the student is from. If you are a Wooten student and you are attending, you may attend without your parent, right? And the reason for that is principals have said consistently, and I very much agree with this. We know our students, we know who our kids are. And we also have built relationships with them. They know who we are if we need to talk with them. And so Wooten students may attend without a parent chaperone. Of course, it's great if you're there. That helps us, and you know, it's more support. So we would love to have you, but it's not required. Anyone else, any other student, whether it's another level, such as middle school or elementary, or a student from another school, must attend with an adult chaperone. And so there is not specifics about, you know, how many students are you coming, but we are essentially going to be taking note. Like if you're coming with 7 or 8 students, we are going to essentially pay attention to and be asking questions of those students. Who is your adult chaperone? And we're trying to take note of who is with this student, because that is who we're going to go to if something arises that we need to address. And so again, Wooten or Churchill students, high school students may attend without an adult chaperone. Any other student must attend with. And if you don't have one, then there is not entry to the game. So Erica, if there's any follow-up, please let me know. And then I see Wyman's iPhone has a question. Let's go to Wyman's iPhone. What's your question, please?
They may have raised their hand on accident.
Okay.
While we have a minute, I just wanted to revisit with you. I put the grading policy, that grading sheet for the semester grades in the chat. And I think you had stated that an A and then a B is an A. And then we were asked about a B and then an A. Regardless, either way is an A according to that grading chart.
Oh, both of those are?
Yes.
I'm sorry for misspeaking.
I just wanted to point that out, yeah.
Nikki, she takes you to this document, and I would encourage everyone.
Yeah, it's confusing because for other grades where it's different, I think it does result in different, but for the A, B, B, A, I think it's slightly different. But yeah, I would say if you're confused, look at that chart because it's not always easy to remember how those work out.
Not always consistent. And I'll tell you why I shared it the way that I did earlier. Is the one that I deal with most as an administrator is the DE, which ends up being an E, which unfortunately for a number of our students, you know, that is at the end of semester 2, for example, that is what makes the final determination about a credit or not. And so if A, B result, like it's similar to the DE combo. So I just wanted to contextualize why I misspoke on that one, because you so often look at the other. But my recommendation for everyone, because this is just great to have, is grab a copy of this, make your own one, take an image of it, whatever, take a picture of that. It's just a really good reference. Our staff use this calculator all of the time because it's so specific to the grade combination about what final grade you get. So it's an excellent resource for everybody to have. And Nikki, thank you for sharing that. So I have a question here and I have not addressed this. So address dismissal and pickup in the lower parking lot. It really needs more organization or safeguarding. So can I hear a bit more about that?
Yes, sir. Of course, this would be my son's first year at Wooten. I think it's a wonderful school. Really happy to be here. I noticed on the first day, there just seemed to be some organization issues. The kids, of course, are children, young adults approaching, and they are pretty oblivious to the cars. There's really not much security, if you will. I do see a person that is consistently out there now that we're in week 4. I've seen the person who has the security on her, but the kids are just, it's a disarray. They dart out in front of you. They don't really look. And of course, as a driver, you are going to be aware, alert, and trying to avoid any mishaps. But I could just see an accident waiting to happen. And so my concern as
anyone else with me? Okay. So Wendy, you broke up, right? But where we were in your comments, because I think I'm back now. In your comments, it was, there's one security person who's consistently down there. And then
Yes.
that was the last thing I heard.
And I was just stating how it just seems to be a bit of a disarray. She does a wonderful job that I can see to her credit, but it just, I feel there needs to be more to safeguard not only the kids, but even the drivers, because we have to be, of course, on alert behind the wheel, but to have the kids just kind of come out at will and dart out in front at any given time, it's just really seemingly for me a safety issue, and to keep everyone a little more guarded, or maybe a little just needs more, for me, needs more safety. I fear for all the students, and I definitely am a safe driver, but
Mhm.
I've seen incidents that could go really wrong. And I just wondered if there was anything that may be going on in the background that you could speak on to maybe in the future, near future, that could kind of mitigate some of the risks.
So I will say this, I believe you when you say you're a safe driver. I can hear it. And I think that's part of you like making us aware that it could be better down there. What I would, and so thank you for that. What I would start with is arrival and dismissal. I think at all MCPS high schools is a challenging time because everybody moves, just the sheer numbers of individuals. It's not only our students and some staff, but then we have our highest numbers of parents, bus drivers, the number of people here goes up so dramatically during those times. And then we don't necessarily receive additional staffing to go along with that, okay? So that is the challenge essentially. And then where the lower lot has its issues, it's also not the only one that we definitely have to keep an eye on here at Wooten. So just a little context for you, other really tough spots for us. So there are a lot of rules from the city of Rockville, for example, that dictate what happens in the front bus loop. And so security has to be there because parents, except for students with injured children, cannot be in that bus loop. And so you're trying to prevent that. We are really trying to work diligently to prevent parents from dropping their students in the middle of traffic on Wooten Parkway. That has been an issue for us. So we're actually working on a number of things at that time. That being said, we always have our eyes on that lower lot. So I'm very open if there are some things for the staff that we have assigned, and we have an administrator assigned to lower lot and a security person during that time. If there are some additional ideas or things you think we can be doing, right? Because we know what our staff is going to be down there and everyone else is assigned elsewhere. So I'm really interested in hearing from you, Wendy, about what we might be able to do, because I can share that with Mr. Pucciarelli, who's the head of our security team.
Okay. Well, just in comparison, of course, with previous schools, and they would do things, and of course, it may seem a little elementary because this is kind of where I would try to offer something. There were, of course, times, or maybe they did it in an organized way with dismissal. Maybe instead of dismissing each grade level all at once, maybe do it in a segmented or, kind of way so that not all the children are just dispersed at once. And I don't know if that is even the case, but I just wondered if something maybe like that, a staggered dismissal of some sort. I don't know if you do bus drivers first, car riders, walkers, however that goes, or I don't know. I know staffing, like you just, I think, brought up the point that they are limited and dispersed throughout the campus. So that's the one thing that kind of came to my mind. Maybe if it was possible to do something like that so that you can at least control the number of students that are out at once, instead of it just looking like it's a fire and the doors open and everyone is afloat. Yes.
So it is an idea definitely to explore. So let me take that one back. If that one, changes such as that, they go to our instructional leadership team. So please just know it's not something that administrators kind of can make that call. It would really need to be looked at by a team here, but it's an idea and I appreciate that you would share it. I have seen one of my schools prior to this one, we were attached to an elementary school and we were the middle school. And so I've seen the way that they do it and what elementary schools, their structures in place, they are legit is what I would say. It's very clear what they are doing and how they are running their show. So thank you for that suggestion.
I appreciate you even listening. Thank you.
Of course, yeah, of course. So I wanted to, for this comment in the chat, this one asks me, this is from Kimberly, if there was an issue at any Wooten games. And I realize this has been addressed, but I have a slight issue with those who cannot follow appropriate guidelines and not held accountable, and then everyone who's paying the price for this. I understand that. I very much can relate to where that's coming from, because it feels like it just blankets everyone in this response. What I would say to you, Kimberly, we have not had major issues at our games. I will say one thing that as a new principal, maybe I was a little pensive about, it's, and how are our kids going to return this year? And where are we going to feel that energy back, that they were excited to be back at school and to engage in the activities and everything that we had planned. I wanted it to go so well for them. And then we came back to school and it really felt like this was back. Pep rallies have been enjoyable. The activities fair yesterday was attended by almost everybody. The gym was actually like just swimming with staff and students both, and people were signing up. The energy feels back, and that includes our games. And so first and foremost, I want to make sure that we keep that spirit, that positive spirit, back for our students. So I just wanted to begin with that. We have not had major issues at games. I will say we have had to deal with two specific things. We have had middle schoolers who are here unattended and have given the staff here at Wooten challenges, and we have worked on that individually. So I believe that students that are not Wooten students should come with a parent chaperone. I think that is a best practice, and I would hope parents would want to be at the game with their child. So I think that's great. When it comes to many of the other practices that are being put in place, I do want you to know this in context, that they were worked on and developed with everyone across all MCPS high schools. So principals and athletic directors and security team leads, and then all the executives. It was a very large group that put their best thinking together to assign the new guidelines. And while it feels that it's kind of put upon those that are doing the right thing, I still believe you're going to enjoy games as before, because we're not going to be addressing those things that we don't feel like we need to address. So I believe we're still going to be able to strike a good balance here. I just appreciate the new guidelines. So if we need to use them, we can go back to those. So I hope you work with us on that, Kimberly.
Mr. Nelson, I know we should be wrapping up because we're past the hour. We have one question way back at the beginning that I think got passed over when you lost your connection. It was just about students parking at those available spots in the Hurley Shopping Center where it's unfenced. And Mr. Shapiro wanted to know if the developer is okay with students parking in that area.
So what my understanding, and if anybody in the community has heard anything different, please let me know, because this is us working with someone else, that no, students should not be parking and that the developer has not given permission for our students to park there.
Okay, and then one last question. In years past before COVID, the school did an open house type day on Columbus Day for parents to come and sit in classes. Is that being reinstated this year?
Yeah, so Nikki, I don't believe it ever went away. I think that it just during COVID, obviously that's not something we're going to do, right?
Right.
So that expectation never disappeared. It's just now we're back to a year where it makes sense that we would be looking at that again, right? So my understanding is that Columbus Day is still an open house day.
Okay, I'm just asking because usually the PTSA would participate in that day, and I hadn't seen anything come out about it. So I just wanted to double check. And we may have parents because of COVID who've been at the school for several years, but have never participated in that day.
Right, or if you're brand new, right? That's like that, it's part, a little bit of MCPS culture. So if you are new, please know that on Columbus Day, MCPS opens classrooms for parents to come in and, you know, stay for a period of time, stay the entire day, but you get to move through your child's schedule in what we call open house. I know that means different things for different districts, but open house for us is you may visit the school on that day, and that specific day is chosen because many people are off. So that actually allows parents to come to the school. We will be open, it will be open house. And so, you know, please know, elementary, middle, or high school, you may attend school that day.
Okay.
Awesome. And just a little note, people are putting some suggestions in the chat about drop off and secure. So I'm making note of those. We'll see if we can make adjustments, but I just wanted to acknowledge I see those recommendations being put in there.
Okay, unless there's any other questions, we should go ahead and wrap up for today.
Awesome. Well, then I will say thank you very much. I appreciated spending this time with you all at our first coffee chat. These happen right after the general PTSA meeting each month. So hopefully we'll see many of you back, and a lot of you, please join us for the PTSA meetings as well. We would love to see you there.